Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. I am so excited you're here today because we're going to take a really fascinating journey into how humans manage massive, almost incomprehensible complexity using software interfaces. Seriously, every time you track a package racing across the city or read an article about a new neurological breakthrough, you are relying on these invisible, wildly complex systems. Today, we're looking at two highly specialized, deeply intricate platforms that, by pure coincidence, happen to share the exact same acronym. But as we unpack them, you'll see they actually represent this ultimate duality in modern computing, managing the physical world versus mapping the digital brain. Okay, let's just dive right into this. Here's our quick roadmap for today. First, we'll unravel that FSL acronym mystery. Then we'll look at managing the physical world with Salesforce, analyze the digital brain with FMReeb, compare GUI and CLI systems, and finally, build the interface bridge to connect it all together. Okay, Section 1, the FSL acronym mystery. Let's get right to this weird linguistic coincidence, because let's be honest, in the tech world, we clearly lack imagination when naming things. On one side, we have Salesforce Field Service Lightning, which is almost always abbreviated as FSL. It's an extension of Salesforce's Service Cloud, and it's built entirely around coordinating physical workforces. We're talking cable installers or door fitting crews out in the real world. Now, on the flip side, we have the FMReeb software library, which is also universally known as FSL. But this is a comprehensive library of analysis tools for functional, structural, and diffusion MRI brain imaging data. So one handles the physical logistics of trucks and technicians, while the other processes four-dimensional digital brain scans. Let's break them both down, starting with the physical side. Moving on to Section 2, managing the physical with Salesforce FSL. Managing this kind of massive logistical machine relies entirely on human orchestration. Salesforce FSL really revolves around four main personas. You've got service agents, who take that initial customer call and create a case. Then you have dispatchers, who look at these incredibly complex schedules to send the exact right person for the job based on skill, availability, and proximity. Out in the real world, you have the field technicians on the move, using mobile apps with offline capabilities to actually get the work done. And finally, you have service managers monitoring the overall efficiency and customer satisfaction. It is a huge, continuous coordination of human movement. To make that orchestration actually work, the software relies on a very specific data model. The absolute crucial point here is understanding the difference between two core records. First, you have work orders. These define exactly what work needs to be performed. Then, you have service appointments. These act as the child record, and they dictate exactly when and where that visit will actually happen. These records interact with service territories, operating hours, and some really complex scheduling policies to automatically match the right technician to the right location at the exact right time. Now, because this data model is just so robust, you can't just flip a switch and roll out Salesforce FSL. It requires a highly structured implementation. A business really has to first assess their specific needs, plan the integration with whatever existing systems they have, configure the objects and work types, run a very rigorous testing phase, and then finally go live while constantly monitoring for feedback. Getting this right the first time is absolutely crucial. It saves massive headaches down the line. A misstep here could literally mean a technician gets sent to the wrong city or shows up without the parts needed for a critical job. To keep from getting totally overwhelmed by all that complexity, you definitely don't implement everything at once. You start with a minimum viable product, or an MVP, which just includes the absolute essentials. We're talking generating work orders and service appointments, setting up basic territories, and using out-of-the-box dispatching. You intentionally save the really heavy stuff like custom scheduling policies, automated SMS alerts, or intricate billing integrations for much later phases. Expert consultant Aidan Flynn really hits the nail on the head regarding the Salesforce approach. He notes, and I quote, "In most field service projects, there will be a wish list that stretches far beyond the budget. This involves considering breaking up your requirements and what makes up the minimum viable product. It's all about managing that real-world complexity through a phased, highly structured rollout." All right, Section 3, analyzing the brain with FMReeb FSL. So leaving the physical world behind for a minute, we enter the statistical universe of neuroimaging data. FSL is really famous for its fMRI expert analysis tool, which is usually just called FEAT. FEAT is used to analyze fMRI time series data, and at its absolute core is something called the general linear model, or GLM. The GLM allows researchers to mathematically describe different types of stimulation, like flashing lights or cognitive tasks, for every single 3D pixel in the brain, which is known as a voxel. The GLM finds a linear combination of the modeled response that minimizes the unmodeled noise. Basically, it asks a delightfully simple question of some incredibly complex data. How strongly does the brain's activity in this tiny specific spot match the stimulus we gave the patient? When a researcher actually uses feet, they run their 4-knee brain scan, which, by the way, is just 3D space plus time, through a pretty rigorous workflow pipeline. It starts with pre-stats, which is all about cleaning up the raw image. Then comes the stats phase, and that's where that general linear model we just talked about is actually applied. Finally, there's the post-stats phase. This is where researchers use contrasts and thresholding to determine which areas of brain activation are actually statistically significant, right before they render those beautiful, color-coded brain maps we're all used to seeing. But here's the thing. Before any real statistics can happen, the software has to deal with incredibly messy reality. Think about it. The patient breathes, their head inevitably moves, and the scanner's own magnetic field distorts the image. So the pre-stats phase is just an absolute gauntlet of corrections. Feet runs algorithms to fix head motion, unwarp magnetic field distortions, correct the timing of the scanner's digital slices, and it even digitally extracts the physical brain from the skull just to reduce noise. It is a massive amount of data preparation just to get to the starting line. Okay, so on one hand, we have Salesforce juggling technicians across different geographies in real time. And on the other, we have fMRI running these highly complex motion correction algorithms on massive 4-dimensional datasets. It brings up a pretty fundamental question. How do we, as human beings, actually communicate with and control these massive systems without our brains completely exploding? Which leads us to Section 4, Commanding Systems, GUI versus CLI. To answer that question, we have to look at the two distinct ways humans interact with computer software. First, we have the graphical user interface, or GUI, and then we have the command line interface, or CLI. A GUI allows you to interact using visual elements, windows, icons, menus, buttons, using a mouse and keyboard. It's highly intuitive. A CLI, in stark contrast, is a text-based interface. You interact with the operating system by typing exact commands into a terminal. It is not intuitive at all. It requires you to know the specific syntax and structure of the system you're commanding. Now, the crucial point here is understanding the trade-offs between these two. GUIs are wonderfully user-friendly and visual, but they consume a lot of memory and processing power just to render all those graphics, which makes them generally slower. CLIs, on the other hand, are incredibly precise, and once you actually know the commands, they are much faster to execute. But more importantly, CLIs consume very low memory and processing power, making them highly efficient for the computer, even if they require a much higher cognitive load from the human typing the commands. Because of these completely differing strengths, they naturally have totally different ideal use cases. You'd use a GUI for everyday computing, multimedia, or tasks that require visualizing lots of simultaneous information, like multitasking across different windows or designing a layout. You use a CLI for system administration, managing remote servers, and most importantly, scripting and automation, where a sequence of precise commands can just be fired off rapidly without any graphical overhead slowing the machine down. And finally, Section 5, the interface bridge. All right, let's bring this all together. For Salesforce Field Service, a GUI isn't just nice to have, it is absolutely critical. Dispatchers need to access multiple pieces of information at the exact same time to decide who is best for a job. Their dispatcher console features a highly dynamic split panel showing a massive, colorful Gantt chart. A human dispatcher simply couldn't juggle the real-world variables of traffic, technician skill, and shifting schedules using just text commands. The GUI heavily reduces the human cognitive load, turning geographical and temporal complexity into a super intuitive, visual drag-and-drop experience. Now let's flip back to the fMRIB software library, because this is where things get truly brilliant. Feed has an incredible amount of variables to set up, from high-pass filter cutoffs to convolution settings for that general linear model. To make this actually accessible, Feet uses a GUI for the user-friendly setup. But, and this is the cool part, when the researcher hits the Go button, the software doesn't actually run the analysis in the GUI. Instead, it takes all those visual inputs, saves them in a temporary file, and silently generates a background CLI script. The GUI basically steps aside, and the CLI takes over to crunch that massive 4D neuroimaging data, fully utilizing the low resource usage and high speed of the command line. It's literally the best of both worlds. So, whether we're dispatching a fleet of trucks across a busy city, or mapping the invisible neural pathways of the human brain, the power of modern software lies in how these interfaces bridge the gap between human intuition and machine precision. But as our systems grow exponentially more complex, we have to ask ourselves,
Will the precise text-based mechanics of the CLI eventually disappear entirely behind increasingly friendly GUIs? Or will the raw power of the command line always be the true engine driving our greatest technological leaps? Definitely something to think about. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.